Hi and welcome to another SphericAlpha Halloween special. The best month of the year looms upon us once again. When discussing anything related to Halloween or horror, the conversation often rounds up to topics like what's the best Halloween horror movie? What's the best horror game? Or when is PT coming out? Yeah, I feel you. Yet somehow, despite the obvious connection to Halloween, we seldom talk about what's some banger graveyards in video gaming. Don't worry, I got your back, because that's what we're tackling today. My top 10 graveyards in gaming. Halloween, death, skeletons, candy corn and graveyards. Does it get more perfect than that? I doubt it. So hold on to your seat, pop some popcorn and get some Monster Energy / zombie soda. This is gonna be a long one. In the late 90s, Capcom wanted to bring back old school gameplay with a 3D hack-and-slash game called Maximo: Ghosts of Glory. It borrows heavily from the early NES classic Ghosts and Goblins, including the later's graveyards. The main difference is, instead of containing Ghosts and Goblins' graveyard theme to one stage, Maximo does the bold thing to expand that style and theme to the entire game, making it not only fitting for this list, but for good Halloween-themed games to play as well. With great stage names such as Coffin Canyon, Grave Danger or Captain Cadaver, you know you're in for a treat. My personal favorite 10th spot is the short but dreadful level called Tomb Tower. The only level to my knowledge without any music in the game, just eerie atmosphere and cicadas chiming away. That combination is near unbeatable. The level hosts a large graveyard area with tombstones and some open graves. The gameplay itself is quite straightforward, with the mechanic of losing armor when damaged enough as its main feature. And although the game has aged much like the undead you slay in it, it does have its moments from time to time, and I cannot deny how fun I used to have when I played. Leaving the hack-and-slash realm behind us, we enter Earth Realm and the fighting genre in Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat has been there since the day I turned 11, much to my mother's dismay. The games always had horror-themed or downright creepy stages. You could knock a guy down in acid, melting their skin off, knock them off a bridge, impaling them on spikes, or straight up rip a guy's head and spine off their shoulders. I loved it. My mom didn't. But I was always a bad boy, and so I played through every MK I could get a hold of, resulting in me finding one of my favorite stages featuring a graveyard, the aptly named Graveyard Stage from Mortal Kombat 3. I've never been a particular fan of the MMO collection of games. I found them tedious, overly grindy, and paying monthly for playing a game has never been my style. Hence why I believe Guild Wars 2 to be the best among the MMORPG pool. But despite this, an MMO has snuck itself onto the list, not named Guild Wars 2, and that game is World of Warcraft with its Tranquil Gardens Cemetery. I would argue that it's impossible to recapture the feeling most of us had when we were in the golden age of gaming, and therefore it's also these memories and places that mean so much to us. Tranquil Gardens in WoW is one of those very places. Located deep within Duskwood, the Tranquil Gardens Cemetery oozes enormous early 2000 atmosphere and design, with patches of grass, Big bushy trees, thick fog and gravestones littering the outside of a ruined church inhabited by an insane ghoul. You can do quests by dispatching the undead found outside or simply take in the view if you so wish. At first glance, it's a simple, cliché location, but that's also the reason why it works. Sitting inside, sipping a Jolt Cola and slaying undeads, while the veil of night slowly falls over the land. There aren't many things that can beat that feeling. Pick any of the Resident Evil games in the franchise and you'll have a pick for this list, no doubt. I have to concede that before I reveal my personal favorite, the first game in the series have to get a mention not only for how ahead of its time the game was, helping shape the horror genre game scene, but also for the fantastic graveyard in it, full of fantastic horror elements and mystery. But ultimately, this is my list, and the 7th spot goes to the church graveyard from Resident Evil 4. It's apparent to anyone that the game is much more action focused than its former colleagues, but Resident Evil 4 has some serious atmospheric horror at times. After finding and saving Ashley in 2-1, you emerge from the church on the hill and are greeted with a true horror-esque sight. Stormy skies amid the dark of night, burning torches in the hand of crazed villagers, and you now have to protect not only yourself, but Ashley as well. The stakes are raised. This is a very small area and short section of the game, but it has stuck with me ever since. A puzzle to solve and hints that can be found in the graveyard itself, being able to shoot the bell to attract more ganados, and finally, this is one of the very few locations in the game where Las Plagas infected dogs can be found. Resident Evil sure knows how to pull off a creepy, atmospheric graveyard. Another fighting game creeps onto the list. This game has been in the business since 1998, and I'll be surprised if you actually know what game it is. I'll let you guess. Come on. Wrong! The mystery game is called The Last Blade 2. The Last Blade 2 is good at 3 major things. Fun fighting mechanics reminiscent of Samurai Showdown. The story that has this grim, dark mood to it, and the characters that reflect this fact. And lastly, The Last Blade 2 kills it Halloween! When it comes to having sick, animated fighting stages. A simple GIF could easily be used to highlight the importance of pixel art and why it's still relevant today. And when it comes to Halloween and graveyard, nothing showcases this combination better than the graveyard stage. Only available in Versus mode, this dark, atmospheric stage full of withered grass, dead trees, a deprecated hut defying gravity by still standing, and finally a bunch of gravestones solidifying the eeriness a fighting game stage can emit, is how it should be done. To get in the mood of Halloween and the iconic feeling in the air that the holiday provides, this graveyard is a good place to start. We're halfway there. You knew that I just had to have at least one Souls game on here. It was a hard pick. Most of the Souls games have a minimum of one representation of graveyards/cemeteries. Dark Souls 3 has the ominous and mysterious untended graves. And we've all died to the Skeleton Doom Squad, while we wandered obliviously into the iconic graveyard in Firelink Shrine. Therefore, the prize for the 5th spot goes to a personal favorite of mine, the Tomb of Odeon from Bloodborne. Walking in on Father Gascoigne while he chops up semi-beasts, followed by one of the better boss fights in the game, full of adrenaline, would have been enough. But the arena has a fantastic aesthetic with graves littering the majority of this place, and a large tilted tombstone in the middle of it all. Trees, lamps and eerie statues fill up the remainder of the arena. It's hard to resist being drawn into the game during this stage of the game, It showcases so much of what Bloodborne is all about. Atmosphere, the struggle to survive, and the fear of the unknown. Believe it or not, but the concept art is even more filled with horror elements. When it comes to great graveyards, Tomb of Odeon makes the list without breaking a sweat. If you want a through and through good game to play for Halloween, I'll always recommend, among others, Medieval. This entire game has so many clichés and horror/Halloween related content. Flailing, brain-dead zombies spurting out from coffins in the ground, and large cemeteries are some of the many things you come across. But my favorite will always be the Cemetery Hill stage. Now I know I'm semi-cheating here, but technically the stage has a large open cemetery space on the base of the hill. What makes this cemetery, wink wink, is the overall theme. Witches! And Halloween goes hand in hand, and trying to get to a mausoleum on top of a hill just seals the deal. Please give me some more of this. There are a few neat details, like a required witch's talisman and a hidden room with what seems to have been a witch cove, where eldritch rituals were conducted. Apart from that, there really isn't much else to say. If you want to have some good graveyards to run through in this spooky time, I'd say give Medieval a try. You won't be disappointed. Amidst the allegations and chaos surrounding Activision Blizzard these recent years, it's hard not to think back and reminisce about when Blizzard Entertainment was at their peak with titles like Warcraft 3, StarCraft 1 and 2, and who can forget one of the best games ever made, Diablo 2. Not only was the game polished and ahead of its time, but it was replayable because of the many different builds the player could try out. And the randomly generated environments between the acts helped to make it feel different almost every playthrough, and you could never get tired of the soundtrack. But we're talking graveyards and cemeteries here, and luckily for us, Diablo 2 has one hell of a graveyard, pun intended. The burial grounds in Act 1 is everything I want when it comes to making a spooky graveyard. It's a fenced off area that has plenty of gravestones and associated skeletons and zombies. Oh sorry, I meant hungry deads, of course. It also features 2 optional dungeons, a crypt and a mausoleum. And the cherry on top is the super unique Blood Raven boss that can be found and slain here. This is one of the most iconic and memorable graveyards in gaming, and for a good reason. It makes you forget reality for a while, and slaying undead in the dark amidst dead trees and gravestones is all that matters for a while. Perfection. Although I think Diablo 2's graveyard was nothing short of perfection, we still have 2 entries to go. 2 entries that went a step further and made every other graveyard areas feel lacking in comparison. The second entry on my personal top 10 graveyards in gaming, are you ready? Is none other than the graveyard stage from Ghosts and Goblins and Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Yeah, you heard right, this spot belongs to 2 different games and graveyards depending on preference. Either from the Graveyard to the Forest from Ghosts and Goblins, or the Dead Place from Super Ghouls and Ghosts. Both are graveyard themed with a variety of enemies, and both offer the player a tough challenge since you only have 2 hits and then you're dead. Ghosts and Goblins is 8-bit perfection, starting in a graveyard forest where zombies will swarm you unrelentlessly. And Super Ghouls and Ghosts is pretty much the same, but it features moving ground and has more power-ups and enemies. The main difference is that one game is ridiculously hard but does have the arguably better graveyard, while the Super version is more cinematic and has better controls, which is another reason both games are on here. It's ultimately a choice of preference. If you ask me, I'll always use the original Ghosts and Goblins. Those 8-bit graphics and simple yet spooky design makes it a frontrunner on games that have fantastic graveyards. Before taking a look at the best graveyard in all of gaming, let's take a look at some graveyards that barely missed out and will have to remain buried. Here are 5 honorable mentions. As far as graveyards in video games goes, no other graveyard even comes close to the one that can be found in the first generation of Pokémon games, the infamous Lavender Town and subsequent Pokémon Tower. In the history of video games, there hasn't been a more horrifying or bone-chilling graveyard created. The reason behind this small village being super effective is the huge contrast from the otherwise relaxed and joyous world of content, and is a flawless example of how to create a creepy atmosphere. This single place, along with its haunting, dread-inducing music, has spawned a plethora of creepypastas, fabricated an illness called Lavender Town Syndrome, and is said to have caused over 3,400 Japanese children to have, how do I make this PG, committed uninstall life. Aside from that, it also handled a serious concept of Pokémon actually being able to die, and death by extension. It's the only town where you can catch ghost Pokémon in the first gen, and it's rumored that the ghost of a Marowak f***ing killed by Team Rocket is searching for its now orphaned Cubone. Jesus Christ. There's so much to talk about when it comes to the phenomenon known as Lavender Town. But if I had to summarize, Lavender Town has stayed at the top of one of the most scary yet mysterious places in gaming to this day. And it is the undoubtedly best, most horrifying graveyard / cemetery in all of gaming. If you manage to make something that looks like freaking this creepy, you know you've succeeded. Lavender Town from Pokémon gives me chills to this day, just from imagining it. And that's it for the top 10 graveyards in game. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed it as I enjoyed making it. And hey, as it's the spooky month of October, why not check out my other Halloween themed specials? Hopefully you can find something to watch. Thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more content. I'm about to put on one of my favorite movies to watch on Halloween, 1958's Dracula, starring Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. So I hope I'll see you in the next video. Have a spooky Halloween, bye bye!